Hey guys, it's Caleb with Threefold, and today we have a really unique product in the house. This is the BlackMagic Cloud Store. I'm personally really excited about this unit, but it does have some limitations, and I will be telling you everything that I think that this unit needs to improve on. But first, let's talk about what makes this unit so special. All right, so to get it out of the way, this is a review unit. BlackMagic sent us this. We do not get to keep it, nor are we getting paid for this review. So what is it? Simply, it's a NAS. Now, for those of you who don't know, that stands for Network Attached Storage, which is simply a way for multiple computers to access a single device with files and data and all use it at the same time. These are very common, and there's a lot of different brands that make these. But what separates this is the fact that it uses NVMe M.2 flash storage, no spinning disks at all. Now, it also uses RAID 5, which is a very common configuration in terms of RAID configurations. The benefits of using RAID is that it adds read and write speeds, as well as redundancy in the case of a disk failure. The experience of unpacking this unit, plugging it in, and simply installing a single piece of software was so seamless and straightforward and was super refreshing to see. Typically, these units and NAS units in general can require multiple drivers, software, and add a lot of extra headache when setting up a unit like this. And BlackMagic did it right by keeping this extremely simple and user-friendly. The unit itself is extremely simple and it looks great. On the outside, you're going to find a metal enclosure, and then on the top, you're going to find a plastic cover, and then on the bottom, it's going to be plastic as well. On the bottom, you're going to notice there's a really subtle little light to show that the unit is running. Now, in terms of when it is running, it's extremely quiet. It has an internal fan, but you can't even hear it when it is running hardly, unless you put your ear up to it. All right, guys, so this is a little audio test to give you an idea of just how quiet this is. Now, in terms of the ports and the connectivity on this unit, you're going to first have two USB-C 3.0 ports, which is important to note as that is limited to 5 gigs per second or 625 megabytes per second. In addition, you have two 1 gig Ethernet ports and then four 10 gig Ethernet ports. You'll also find an HDMI display back there, which is a little unique to see, but I'll be getting on that later. And finally, you'll have the AC power input. Very important, it does have redundant power supplies. If you look at the display, it's indicated right there, the power supplies. So you can kind of keep tabs on the status of them. So there you go. It does have redundant power supplies. Very important when you're working with a NAS. So that's it. In terms of the software, it's extremely straightforward and has everything that you need and not a bunch of extra stuff that you don't need. You'll have their basic settings on the first page, and on the second page, you'll find the Dropbox and G Drive syncing. Now, we didn't play around with this a ton, but it is a great option to have, especially if you're working with proxy workflows and remote editors. There's currently really no options for security logins with this unit, so that's something I hope that they add down the road in a future firmware update. Overall, it's super clean and straightforward and makes it very approachable for someone who isn't super familiar with NAS units. Now, the display that you'll be getting and being able to see from the HDMI is right here. It's really straightforward. There's no interacting with it, but it is a nice touch to see BlackMagic add a nice visual way to see what's going on in the unit itself, which is something you wouldn't typically see with most NAS units. Now, BlackMagic makes the core idea of this accessible to everyone by also releasing the Cloud Pod and the Cloud Dock alongside the Cloud Store. The Cloud Store really is the only one in the lineup that allows for high capacities and RAID functionality. So at a starting point of $7,595 for this unit here, which is the 20 terabytes, it's clearly not for everyone. The reason for this high cost is because of the fact that it is using solely NVMe drives, which is a hard cost that BlackMagic can't get away from. Now, the other thing that sets this unit apart from other traditional NAS units is that it's really meant to be out in the open and be a really visually great looking piece. For some people, they might not want to deal with the hassle of having a server rack and just need a more simple, clean solution. And for that, this is a great option. BlackMagic designed this unit to be able to handle high data workflows such as 8K and 12K editing. According to BlackMagic, this unit is capable of fully saturating all four 10 gig ports. With each port being able to handle 1,250 megabytes per second, that's equivalent to about 5,000 megabytes per second, which is extremely impressive, and I have no doubt it's capable of doing that, considering most NVMe drives can do that by themselves. Just because it has four 10 gig ports doesn't mean it can't connect to more. It is capable of connecting up to 50 units, but obviously would require a 10 gig switch to do so. And now the few speed tests that we did do with it were simple 200 to 300 gig transfers, and it had no problem consistently transferring at that 1,000 to 1,200 megabytes per second transfer rate. Now, the idea of what BlackMagic is going for here is simplicity. They're trying to simplify NAS units for production, post-production teams, really. And after getting to talk with them at NAB, this was very clear that that was their intention, and I think that they've done a really great job with this. Networking and NAS units can sometimes be really complex and confusing, especially for people that aren't in that industry. There are not many plug-and-play NAS solutions like this out there on the market today. For companies that need fast, reliable storage that multiple users can connect to at the same time, this is the most simple solution out there. Now, I've talked about a lot of the things I like with this unit, but it is far from perfect in my eyes. So there's a few things I want to talk about, 3 in particular. Now, the first one is the price. As I mentioned before, this is a spendy unit, and I know that it's using NVMe flash storage, but even when you factor that in, this unit still ends up costing about $380 per terabyte. Now, and even in terms of flash storage, that's expensive. Currently, you can go out and get a fast NVMe drive, 1 terabyte for around 60 bucks. So to see this really come to life, I would love to see this price come down even more, and even factoring in the new price of $7,600, it's still a little expensive. Now, it does have a lot of hardware in it that brings that price up, and I'm not factoring in the loss of data in terms of the RAID 5 configuration, but it still is a little steep for most users. Now on to my second point, which is the biggest problem currently with this unit, and that is the lack of user replaceable drives. So when I reached out to BlackMagic when this was first announced, I asked them what the protocol was on replacing a unit, a drive that had failed. They told me that you have to send the entire unit in to BlackMagic to get it repaired. This is obviously a huge problem for most post-production companies or anyone that's using and relying on these on a daily basis. This means that you could potentially be without your unit for weeks, and on top of that, it could be lost in the mail. If they would just add the function for the users to be able to swap these drives out themselves, it would save a ton of time and headache for companies and be a huge selling point for this unit. Now, I'm sure if you're brave enough, you could dig into this unit and probably swap them out yourselves, but I'm assuming that would void the warranty. I would have loved to dig into this unit myself, but because this was a review unit, that was not something we were able to do. Well, the third point ties directly into the second point, which is I would love to see BlackMagic come out with an empty unit that allows the user to load in their own NVMe drives. This would obviously do a few things, but most importantly, it would bring down that initial investment for people and would allow them to configure it to their needs. BlackMagic does have a solution kind of similar to this with the release of the new Cloud Dock. The only problem with that is it has no RAID functionality and it only has 4 slots for drives. Now, if you're looking for the most simple, elegant, and the fastest NAS solution out there, this is pretty hard to beat, and there are not many other options like this out on the market. Now, with that being said, it still is going to be a big investment for most people. So I don't think it's going to be for everyone, but for the person that really sees the value in it, I think it still is an amazing and super capable option. Over the years, we've gotten so many questions of people asking what our solution is for our server. And I do think there's going to be a huge demand going forward with more and more content every day being captured, and with frame rates and resolution only going up, there is going to be a huge demand and a need for solutions for editing and for video storage and network storage solutions. So it'll be exciting to see what direction BlackMagic continues to take this into the future. That's all I have today for this unit. Thank you guys for watching. We appreciate the support, and we'll see you in the next video.